Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Here I am with a new English online lesson. And as you can see, the topic that we are going to talk about today is foreshadowing. Now, how many of you know what is foreshadowing? Or let's say, what is foreshadowing in a story? Okay, if you don't know, then please pay attention. Okay. Now, foreshadowing is a literary device used to give an indication or hint of what is to come later in the story. It's a useful tool to create suspense as it gives a sense of curiosity to the readers and they get a feeling things are not the way they seem to be. There will be a twist in the plot of the story. Right. So, what are the types of foreshadowing? Number one, direct foreshadowing, and number two, indirect foreshadowing. Now, let's talk about the first one. In this type of foreshadowing, the story openly suggests an impending problem or event. For instance, in Macbeth, Shakespeare uses direct foreshadowing with the witch's prediction in the very opening scene. And number two, indirect foreshadowing. In this type of foreshadowing, the story hints at an outcome by leaving subtle clues throughout the story. An example of indirect foreshadowing occurs in The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, where Bruno's mother doesn't allow her son to go to the backyard of home. Earlier, the window of his room is also covered, but despite all this, he manages to sneak into woods and befriends a prisoner boy, Shamul. I would urge you to get hold of this book. In case the book is not available or it's not possible for you to read, then please watch this movie. It's really worth reading and worth watching. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Okay, now there are various methods for foreshadowing in your writing. The first one being dialogue. You can use characters' dialogue to foreshadow future events. This foreshadowing may take in a form of a joke or an offhand comment. For example, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. I quote, "My life were better ended by their hate, wanting of thy love." Unquote. This dialogue foreshadows Romeo's eventual fate. Opening sentence. The opening sentence of a novel or short story can be used to foreshadow major events in the story. For instance, the leaves fell early that year. This line in the opening of Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms foreshadows an early death. Okay. Number three, setting. Now, the choices you make about the setting or atmosphere can foreshadow events as well. For example, in Love in the Time of Cholera, Gabriel Garcia Marquez uses many instances of foreshadows. Okay, I'll read these for you. From chapter 1, it was inevitable. The scent of bitter almonds always reminded him of the fate of unrequited love. And from chapter 2, Florentino Ariza, the protagonist, on the other hand, had not stopped thinking of her for a single moment since Femina Daza, the heroine, had rejected him after a long and troubled affair 51 years, 9 months, and 4 days ago. Now, the mention of love in the first and time in the second shows that something about the love of a long time is going to happen. Okay. Number 4. Figurative language like similes and metaphors can be effective foreshadowing tools. For example, in David Copperfield, Dickens uses simile to foreshadow the distance between him and Peggotty by comparing her to a figure in a fairy tale. I quote, "I sat looking for some time in a reverie Whether if she were employed to lose me like the boy in the fairy tale, I should be able to track my way home again by the buttons she would shed. Unquote. And finally, character traits. A character's appearance, attire, or mannerism can foreshadow that character's true essence or later actions. For example, the story of an hour, it's easily available on internet. Louise Mallard, the wife of Brentley Mallard, has a heart disease. It's mentioned in the beginning of the story. But the fact that she feels liberation at the news of her husband's death, I quote, she breathed a quick prayer that life might be long, unquote. However, when she witnesses Brentley coming home, her joy turns to shock and she dies as a result. Right? So, what's the conclusion? That foreshadowing can be used to instill almost any feeling in the reader: humor, tension, fear, anticipation. As it only gives the clues to the future, this, of course, encourages the readers to stick to the story and read till end. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Till the next lesson, Allah Hafiz.